Hi, good morning, everyone. Hello. Okay, I think I'm live. Hi. Okay, good morning. All right. I think people are still joining. Okay, I think I have some questions here. How's everyone doing for this Sunday morning or maybe Sunday evening or afternoon? We have people joining from Madison, Wisconsin, Philippines. Okay, good, good. Welcome. Germany. That's afternoon, right? Yeah, that's afternoon. Excellent. All right. Okay, I have a new microphone here. I hope this sound quality will be better. The Netherlands, China. Wow. Let me move this up a little so I can see everyone better. Okay. Pudong Airport, Shanghai, India. Okay, all right. Bangalore, India, Malaysia, Singapore. Excellent. Okay, good. UK. Yeah, I'm glad that my fans in Europe can join me because when I do it at night, in the evenings, it's difficult for my fans in Europe to join me. Melbourne, Australia, excellent. All right, um, good. San Francisco, okay. Well, thank you everyone for joining me. It's morning in Melbourne. Yeah, I think it's yes, it's early in the morning. California, excellent. Penang, okay. All right, so we have a interesting topic today, right? What is Xi Jinping up to? Um, Toronto, welcome everyone. Okay, so what is Xi Jinping up to? Now we know that from August 1st to August 15th, the CCP top leaders have disappeared for 2 weeks, right? They just disappear from public eye. So we've I mean, they never confirmed this, but we know they're at Beidaihe for their annual summer retreat, and that's really one important gathering before the 20th Party's Congress. So it's their last round of power negotiation. So interestingly, after that summer 2 week summer um, retreat, once they appear, there are interesting things that have happened. So I think it's a good time to share with you some of the things that I've noticed, and from there, hopefully, we could get some insight into where CCP or Xi Jinping or China is heading from here on. So that's the idea behind this live. Okay. All right. People are still joining. Excellent. Wonderful. So, oh, before that, I want to ask some people have asked me, so when is the CCP's 20th uh, party congress? It has not been set yet. The dates vary from year to year. So, for example, the last one, the 19th Congress, was held in 2017 from October 18th to the 24th. And then the one before that was in 2012. It was from November 8th to the 14th. So it looks like they alternate between end of October to like beginning or mid November. So they kind of alternate that. So I think for this year, maybe in November again. But we don't know the dates yet, but it's somewhere between October and November. Okay. I just want to clear that. So today I'm going to focus on a few topics. The first is I want to talk about um, the messages, the interesting messages the two most powerful men in China have been sending out, Xi Jinping and Li Keqiang, and then we could talk about their priorities. From there, we could kind of analyze what their priorities are, and then we're going to talk about who is likely to be the next premier, and then we want to answer one interesting question, which I get quite often, which is that why Xi Jinping is so obsessed with getting his third term. A lot of us in the West think, well, if there's so many people opposing you, and if there's such a big mess in China right now, economically, politically, and then diplomatically. So why don't you just give it up? Give it to your political opponent. If they want it, let them have it, right? Why are you so obsessed with getting a third term? So that's a question I often get, and I think it's we need to address that. And then and then after that, we'll talk about, well, has he really secured his third term, or quote unquote third term? And then lastly, I want to talk about, his relations with his biggest political enemy, the Jiang Zemin faction. So those are kind of the 5 questions that I will address today. All right. So, okay. Oh, we have people from Shenzhen, from China. Okay, excellent. So, all right. So, August 16th, Li Keqiang was the first person who reappeared, I should say. So on the 16th, he went to Shenzhen and hosted an economic meeting. He basically hosted a meeting for the 6 major, what he called the 6 major economic provinces, and they are Guangdong, Jiangsu, Zhejiang, Shandong, Henan, and Sichuan. So the first 4 provinces are on the coast. They are the more affluent provinces on the coast, and then Henan is in the center, and then Sichuan is a little bit to the west. So these are really the 6 major the provinces that collectively they contribute to 45% of China's economy or GDP. So they're extremely important right now. And interestingly, Shanghai is not on the list. Normally, Shanghai would be one of the most important area, that contribute to the national economy. But interestingly, Shanghai is not on the list. It's because of the economic downturn during the lockdown. So basically, he wants he wants these provinces to tighten their belt and run the local government frugally. Watch their budget, and then make sure that they meet the financial contribution quota to the central government. So I think rather than spending his time all over the country, he wants to focus on the major provinces that contribute the most to the economy. And then he visited three places. I think the 3 places he visited were symbolic. It's symbolic in explaining his priorities. He visited an entrepreneurial park. He also visited the Yantian port, one of the ports in Shenzhen, because Shenzhen has a whole series of ports. And this one, Yantian port, is a deep sea port. So by visiting that, he's emphasizing that the global supply chain is important to him. And also he visited BYD, the automaker BYD. That's also based in Shenzhen. So by visiting these 3 places, he's emphasizing entrepreneurship or private business, the global supply chain, and also manufacturing. Also, interestingly, he paid a visit to, or he paid a tribute to a Deng Xiaoping statue in a park in Lianhua Shan Gongyuan, or Lotus Flower Park. And he laid a floral basket there. He also said in front of Deng Xiaoping's statue that no matter what the geopolitical situation changes, and no matter how complex things are, economic reforms must move forward steadfastly. So for him to pay a tribute to Deng Xiaoping's statue, he's obviously making a political statement saying that, we need to continue with Deng Xiaoping's policy of economic reform. So he seems that he's quite active. It doesn't look like he's going to retire a few months from now. So he's he's backing action, right, and making strong political statement. On the same day, Xi Jinping also on the same day, he also reappeared, and he went to the north, to the economically impoverished northeast. He also visited a few places. He visited the Liaoshen Battle Memorial, a forest park, a robotics automation company, and he also received military officers above the rank of major in the Shenyang district. So different from Li Keqiang, Xi Jinping sent a strong militaristic overtone, right? So Liaoshen Battle Memorial, I need to talk about the Liaoshen Battle Memorial because that's quite important in the CCP's history. It is this Battle of Liaoshen was the first of the three major battles between the CCP and the Kuomintang nationalists. This battle was the turning point that allowed CCP military to outgrow the nationalist military in both size and strength. It actually laid the foundation for the CCP to eventually win the battle and seize power and defeat the nationalists who retreated to Taiwan. So what message is he sending by visiting this museum? One is obviously he's implying that the war with Taiwan is on the agenda, right? Because and then he's confident to win. And then also he's saying that he's confident in winning the factional war against his opponent within the CCP. Secondly, the implication is that his gesture, by paying a visit to this museum, he's giving a similar gesture from what's his name, Li Keqiang. It's similar to Li Keqiang laying a floral basket to Deng Xiaoping's statue in the south. He's saying he's paying a tribute to Mao Zedong's military strategy because the victory of the Liaoshen battle is the result of Mao Zedong's military strategy. So him paying a visit to this museum is the same as Li Keqiang, paying a tribute to Deng Xiaoping's statue. And so basically, Li Keqiang is saying we need to continue economic reforms, while Xi Jinping is saying we need to win some battles, we need to win some wars. But Xi Jinping's trip, he also talked about economy. His primary message, or his main message in the Northeast is he reiterated his common prosperity, right? His common prosperity vision. So again, it's a contrast to Li Keqiang's message, because Deng Xiaoping's the whole platform or the vision for Deng Xiaoping's economic reform is in Chinese 让一部分人先富起来, like basically is let some people to get rich first, right? That's Deng Xiaoping's vision for the economic reform. Like we can't get everyone to be wealthy, but at least get some people to be wealthy first. And then Xi Jinping is saying, no, I need to talk about common prosperity. So he went to a poor region in China and reiterated his vision for common prosperity, which is really communist idea of equality, everybody having the same share. Okay, now what's interesting about their visit is the media coverage by the state-controlled propaganda or state-controlled media is different. So on the 16th, the CCTV, or the Chinese Central TV Network, reported Li Keqiang's visit in the South timely, right? But it did not report Xi Jinping's visit to the Northeast. It actually took the CCTV 2 days to report Xi Jinping's visit. And that's on the 18th. In the evening news, that's not during the day, in their evening news, CCTV finally reported Xi Jinping's visit to Liaoning. So that's interesting. Now, what's even slower than the CCTV is People's Daily. It's not until the 19th, right? So the People's Daily started reporting Li Keqiang's visit on front page on the 17th, the day after. But it did not report Xi Jinping's visit. So it delayed until the 19th to give the front page coverage to Xi Jinping. It also delayed it for 2 days. But before it covered Xi Jinping, it covered Li Keqiang, it covered other Politburo Standing Committee members like Li Zhanshu, Wang Yang, Han Zheng. They all appeared in their coverage, but not Xi Jinping. So I think this 2-day delay in covering Xi Jinping is intentional. It's by design. What does that mean? But the Chinese military news did not have this delay. It covered Xi Jinping's visit to the Northeast timely. So basically, it did what the state propaganda did not do. So that just shows you the interesting, uh, you can see the interesting power struggle. So obviously, I think Xi Jinping had a setback at the Beidaihe meeting. Um, so, and I think the delay of his visit by the state controlled media by 2 days is not accidental. So the Beidaihe meeting obviously failed to reconcile Xi Jinping and his political enemies' differences, and if anything, these differences are bigger. And interestingly, Li Keqiang went to the south to an economically wealthy region, while Xi went to the impoverished northeast, right? And they send out completely different messages. So, and that obviously shows that. Oh, thank you. Thank you for the donation. I wonder if CCP's carrot and stick approach may be in the cards of the world regarding Xi and Li. That's very good thinking. So I was thinking about that too. So could it be by design? Like, okay, let's just, in Chinese we say one play the red face, one play the white face, 唱红脸,唱白脸, right? Carrot and stick approach. But no, I don't think so. I'm going to talk about that now. Because when Li Keqiang, when he talked about how in Shenzhen talked about how the economic reforms must be continued, and he also said 黄河长江不会倒流, like the Yellow River and then the Yangtze River cannot flow backwards. His video, his quote, his talking about this was censored. It appeared on Chinese social media briefly, and then the Great Censor removed it. So obviously, Xi Jinping wasn't happy with him talking about that, so he removed it. So that tells me the two diverging views or the two different messages was not by design, was not coordinated. It's them sending completely different messages, and Xi Jinping wasn't happy about what Li Keqiang did or said in Shenzhen. Otherwise, it wouldn't, his video would not be removed. Remember, Xi Jinping controls the internet. His Wangxinban, his authority that controls the internet, controls the plays the great role of the censors. Okay, so the other thing that we've noticed is Xi Jinping's zero COVID policy is met with some setback, because recently in Hainan province, when Sun Chunlan, the female vice premier who is quote unquote the zero COVID lady who runs everywhere to put out fire every time there's an outbreak, when she went to Hainan, she didn't mention zero COVID, or at least the press didn't quote her saying that. And also the local party secretary, the party secretary, I don't know what, the secretary general of the local party in Hainan, the guy also did not mention zero COVID. He actually apologized to the tourists who were stuck there. So that also tells me that his zero COVID policy has met some strong opposition at Beidaihe. The other thing that we could get from this is Li Keqiang will continue to play an important role during the next 5 years. He's obviously supported by the party elders, and he is also, he's like, I don't care. I'm just going to say what I think is right for China right now. And many people say that he will be the head of the People's Congress during the next 5 years. And the other thing that we could take away from this is Taiwan Strait will be an important agenda for Xi Jinping politically. He will continue to use a strong militaristic rhetoric to justify his rule and power. The anti-Xi forces did not succeed in removing him from power or even containing his power significantly, but they did stop him from getting what he wanted. The two sides may have struck a temporary compromise or a balance, but this balance or compromise is fragile and is not stable. Okay, so, all right. Okay, I'm going to move into the next section. All right. So, who's going to be the next premier? Now, after the Beidaihe meeting, other than the media coverage of Li Keqiang and Xi Jinping, there's a third person who all of a sudden is getting a lot of media coverage. And this person is believed to be the next premier, or a lot of people believe that the reason he's getting all this media attention is because he's most likely to be the next premier. And this person is the current vice premier, or the third vice premier in ranking, because there are four vice premiers and he ranked at number 3, and his name is Hu Chunhua. So on the 16th, again, when the two most powerful men, one went to the south, one went to the north. Hu Chunhua was in Beijing hosting 2 meetings, and the Xinhua gave him a lot of coverage. And he hosted the first meeting he hosted was a plenary session for the organizing committee of the 2022 China International Trade Affair. It's a large international trade event. And he delivered a keynote speech. He also attended and spoke at an agricultural event on the same day. And both of his speeches were reported by Chinese state-controlled media, and they use terms like 胡春华指出，胡春华强调, like he, the verbiage, the rhetoric is or the way they use it, the way they describe him is similar to the language they would typically use when describing a head of state or a major party leader. Now, so who is this guy? He is currently the youngest vice premier. The other 3 people are all over the age of 67, so they are most likely to retire. He's only 59. He was hyped to enter the Politburo Standing Committee at the last Party Congress in 2017 and he was also hyped to become Xi Jinping's successor 5 years ago. He was said to be Hu Jintao's second chosen successor. Hu Jintao chose Li Keqiang, but Hu lost it to Xi Jinping. And so this Hu Chunhua is Hu Jintao's second chosen heir by the last name is all Hu. So, and he was only what, 54, so he was really young 5 years ago, but Xi Jinping didn't like that, so he didn't even make it to the Politburo Standing Committee 5 years. And then after that, after he failed, so he has been kind of quiet, and so all of a sudden he's getting all the media attention, made people believe that he may be now replacing Li Keqiang to be the next premier. Politically, he's aligned with the Tuan Pai, which is the Youth League faction, which is the Hu Jintao faction. And Xi Jinping has always been, unlike the Jiang Zemin faction, the Youth League faction, or the Hu Jintao faction, does not pose as much of a threat to him. But Xi Jinping is also staying on alert. So he has kept a distance from Hu Chunhua only because Hu Chunhua was meant to succeed him, because Hu Chunhua was a chosen heir to succeed Xi, and she didn't like that. But Xi Xi Jinping might have agreed to let him uh, to be the premier because that will end his possibility to be Xi Jinping's successor. So letting him succeed Li Keqiang to be the next premier, he's still under Xi, and he would not pose a threat to Xi Jinping. So it's something actually Xi Jinping could accept. Xi Jinping's first choice for premier is Li Qiang, the head of Shanghai. But then due to the fiasco we've seen in Shanghai during the lockdown, Li Qiang's chance to be the next premier is small. So on July 27th, People's Daily published an article by Hu Chunhua, and who praised Xi Jinping for his leadership in agriculture. And the article mentioned Xi Jinping's name more than 50 times. So people say this is who's showing his loyalty, pledge of allegiance to Xi Jinping publicly, and right before the Beidaihe meeting, right? So why would you all of a sudden write an article in praise of your leader and mention his name 50 times on July 27th? So all right. Okay. Okay, so now let me talk about the most interesting question. Why Xi Jinping must get a third term? This is a question a lot of people ask. Um, I already said that if you look at it from the Western perspective, it's like, why do you bother? I mean, if there's so many people oppose you domestically and internationally, and Chinese economy is deteriorating fast, and there's just so many social problems, right? The real estate problem, the banking problem, it's like, why bother? Why don't you just quit? Let whoever want to take it over from here, let them do it. But that's a Western thinking, because things like that does not happen in China. This is looking at the leadership transition from a Western perspective. Because there are two reasons why Xi Jinping must, or from his perspective, from the CCP's perspective, why he must hold on to power, because otherwise there's no alternative for him. The first reason is that the name third term is actually misleading, because CCP leaders never had any term limit. Sorry. Deng Xiaoping was the one who came up with this concept, but he didn't follow it, even though he let Hu Yaobang or Zhao Ziyang or even Jiang Zemin to be the party head, or to be uh, the party head, or to be the president of the country. He himself was actually the number guy, the guy who stayed behind, who actually controlled everything. So even though Deng Xiaoping set the term limit, he didn't follow that rule. He was still running China. He was still calling the shots, right? And then after him, Jiang Zemin also, called the shots during the Hu Jintao's time, who never had any real power. So this term limit, so every time people say, even when I said, Xi Jinping is fighting for his third term, I didn't think it was accurate. I don't think we should use that term, because there's no term limit. They don't have any term limit. Term limit is designed to protect, is to control and limit those people who may pose a political threat to them. Term limit is designed so that they could play the role of a dictator permanently. So the whole idea of a term limit in China is not the same as a term limit here. So first of all, that whole concept is misleading. So in the mind of Xi Jinping, or in the mind of a Chinese communist dictator, there's no term limit. What are you telling me? You think I'm done? And even Hu Jintao. So you may say Hu Jintao is the only CCP leader who kind of stepped down after 10 years. But even when he did that, he negotiated. He agreed to step down or stay out of politics with a condition. And that condition is to let Xi Jinping run the show. Because at the time, he during his time, he was fighting with the Jiang Zemin faction, throughout his entire 10 years. So he basically had agreement with the Jiang faction to say, well, if you want me to be out of this completely, you do the same. We both get out and let Xi Jinping run the show. So his so he did not like willingly or graciously just retire because his term is up. That did not happen. So the first reason is no CCP leader actually finished their term and then retire. And the second reason is in the CCP's power struggle, the losing party never had a good ending. They either die or they're being locked up. So if you look at from the Mao's time to the present, the losing side, okay, well, the winning side, you're going to, hold on to power and rule, indefinitely. And then the losing party from Mao's time, they either die or they're being locked up, stay in prison. So if you look at Mao's chosen successors, right, Liu Shaoqi died miserably in prison, and Lin Biao died, while trying to escape China. And the third person is Wang Wenhong, who was locked up by Deng Xiaoping eventually and died in prison. And the fourth person is Hua Guofeng. And Hua did not die, but he basically lost power entirely. And, Deng Xiaoping did not lock him up like he did with the with other people, but basically he basically was under. Okay, so Deng Xiaoping couldn't lock him up because Hua Guofeng helped Deng Xiaoping. So basically, Hua Guofeng helped Deng Xiaoping to get rid of Madame Mao, right, and his political enemy. But as soon as Deng Xiaoping obtained power, he got rid of Hua Guofeng, and Hua Guofeng was Mao's chosen heir. So he couldn't send him to prison. So he basically made sure that he has no political influence whatsoever. So he lived just like an ordinary citizen. And then from there on, take a look at Zhao Ziyang. Zhao Ziyang is Deng Xiaoping's chosen heir, and he just had different political views with Deng Xiaoping during the June 4th Tiananmen Square the student movement. But what Deng Xiaoping did to him was he locked him up. So Zhao Ziyang was under house arrest for the rest of his life in China. And it's not what we think. Oh, I have different view. I just tell you I disagree with you, and then I retire, I quit, I could carry on with my life. No, it does not happen in China. Just take a look at Deng Xiaoping and Zhao Ziyang. So he put Zhao Ziyang under house arrest. Even though Zhao Ziyang posed no threat to him, Deng Xiaoping was this paramount leader, all powerful. But out of fear, he still put his political opponent under house arrest. So if you look at the CCP history, it's impossible for Xi Jinping to say, I'm going to retire. I'm going to live a good retirement and you guys take it over from here. It's not. And especially when his power he's not anywhere near Deng Xiaoping in terms of his absolute power. And he's also made so many enemies in the past 10 years during his anti-corruption campaign. He has reprimanded the last number I saw is 4 million CCP officials in the past 10 years. So he has reprimanded so many people. Now, were these people the only corrupt CCP officials in China? Obviously not. Were they the worst officials? Probably not. So there are a lot more corrupt officials out there. But these 4 million people somehow got reprimanded. So how will they feel? The entire system is corrupt. So unless he took down the entire system, if he just punished, a fraction of these people, they're not going to feel fair. So these people are going to be up against him. So he has made so many enemies in the past 10 years. So he knows that. So he cannot quit. He cannot quit. There's no way well, let me put it this way. If you have been engaged in a life and death battle fighting with your enemy, you can't back out that battle. You can't just say, okay, I'm going to quit. Let's stop here. Okay, I'm going to retire. I'm not going to fight you anymore. You find somebody else to fight, not me. That just won't happen. So it's hard for the Western perspective to understand that, because we look at it from, we use all the terms that fit with Western politics, term limit, and also read Western media saying Xi Jinping is working hard to seek his re-election. There's no election in China. What do you mean his re-election? He wasn't elected in the first place, so there's no re-election. So all these terms misrepresent the Chinese politics or CCP politics. And that's why we don't understand it. Okay, I think I have clearly explained that. All right. All right. So any questions? All right. So let me continue. So now comes the question. So will he get a third term? Right? That's the ultimate question. Will he get a third term or will he not? Well, we don't know, right? There's anything with, it's like gambling. There's always, you don't know what would happen in when you have two sides that are crazy, that are engaged in a crazy fight against each other. We don't know what will happen, but I think the Xi Jinping has been sending some signals to indicate that he will uh, get his third term, or he will continue to rule China. The first, he's been sending a series of messages. The first came from the president of Indonesia, who, during an interview with Bloomberg, said that Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin will both attend the G20 summit in November in Bali. So, and that's the timing of it is right after the 20th Party's Congress. And not only that, a Japanese newspaper, Sankei Shimbun, also reported that just recently that since this is the 50th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between China and Japan, the two governments are studying and preparing to arrange a bilateral meeting between Xi Jinping and Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida at the G20th summit. And also, Wall Street Journal had reported that Joe Biden and Xi Jinping are also planning a face-to-face meeting during the time when they meet at the G20 summit, and also the following APEC meeting in Thailand. So all three media reports are saying that he is going to G20. So if he's not getting his third term, how is he going to go, right? So maybe it's his strategy to release this information to make everyone believe that he's getting it. Maybe that's his strategy, so that people just accept the fact, oh, he is going to be, he is going to rule China for the next 5 years. But there are also two other news that are worth discussing. The other is also from Wall Street Journal. I think that this came out last Friday. It was very recent. And according to sources coming from the Chinese side, Xi Jinping's team has been working actively to for him to attend the annual Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit in Uzbekistan in September 15th to 16th. But they're not sure if he's going. But they said his team said if he goes, he will meet with Putin there, and he will also meet with the leaders of Pakistan, India, and Turkey. Now this is before the 20th Party's Congress. So this news is obviously similar to the news that he would go to Saudi Arabia before the 20th Congress, right? It was so I think by sending these messages or by taking international trips, after 29 months. He has not left China for 29 months. Um, yeah, since till this month, it will be 29 months. To September, it will be 30th months. So the fact that he is confident to leave China is saying something, saying that he feel assured that he will continue, that he got what he want at the next party meeting. So I'm just laying you the my rationale for saying that it's most likely he will continue to rule China after this November. All right. Okay. So let's see. Last question, last but not least. So where does she stand in his perpetual ugly fight with his biggest political enemy, the Jiang Zemin faction? I made a video in June. It's June the 18th, called "A Tycoon Amid the Factional War." It's about the Chinese billionaire Xiao Jianhua and his um, upcoming trial. Basically, Xiao Jianhua is what the Chinese called white gloves, or what Westerners called bagmen. He's the middleman who helped the CCP leaders and their families to run their business or turn their illicit money into legitimate funds, and in turn, rose to great financial power themselves. And he was notoriously involved in the financial coup against Xi by the Jiang Zemin faction. Thank you, William. Thank you. Mass arrest and executions, fastest way convince foreign investors CCP not collapse like Soviet Union. Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, I'll address that comment later on. It's an interesting point. Um, I have somebody from Fred Fowler. If CCP might collapse, what would take its place? All right, I'll address that. Well, let me address it now. What would happen? I mean, China. This is actually the kind of thinking the CCP has instilled during the past 70 some years. It basically had made people believe that it's the only party, it's the only authority capable of ruling China. It's making people inside, outside China to believe that without it, China cannot thrive and nobody else can root China. But that thinking is not legitimate. I mean, throughout 5,000 years of Chinese history, one dynasty, one dynasty is gone and the new dynasty come. So I mean, there are so many um, capable or great leaders in China who have a vision for China, who know how to run the country. So why does it have to be CCP? It's just one political party. I mean, there's so many people in China who are capable, who love their country, um, who have a better vision for China. Why not give these people a chance? But somehow we've all believed that CCP is so powerful, it cannot fail. Even when it fails, who can run China? It's going to be so chaotic. So, we already have kind of accepted that kind of brainwashing. But no, maybe China will become a truly democratic country. There will be multiple political parties. People will run elections just like we do, and there will be different political parties and different leaders. Will form their own political parties. They have their own platforms or um, visions for running China. So I think that's human history, right? You can never say only this party can rule China, or without it, China cannot fail. It's like Chinese have a saying, 长江后浪推前浪. When this wave is passed out, there will be a new wave come. So there will be people. So hopefully I answered that question. The other question is mass arrest and executions, fastest way to convince not. Mass arrest. I think your comment brought up a good point, which is why, which is the question, why CCP has not collapsed? I mean, those people who kind of have been speaking, those, little pinks or Wu Mao have been saying, oh, you guys have been talking about CCP would fail, for the past 10 years, but look, it's still here. How come it has not failed? Um, it has weaponized, all these technology. It has weaponized technology. It has turned technology into a weapon. So the digital surveillance technology has been it was established by the Jiang Zemin faction 20 some years ago against political dissidents and against people like the Falun Gong. So that was when they developed these technology to put an eye on people who they don't like. And then now, in the past 10 years, with the advance, with the help of the West, there are Western companies to help China develop these technology, and now they have perfected their technology. They have applied it to put the entire country under surveillance. So they have these tools now to kind of stamp out any social unrest, to kind of to watch any discord, right? To put it out, to stamp out any disobedience or any different opinions in the early stage, because they have this digital tool. And then the COVID has helped them to do that even more even more conveniently, because they can just lock up a city, right? If I mean, the COVID lockdown has really become a weapon now. So yeah, so I don't know if I answer your question. So that's why on one hand it's going to collapse, on the other hand it's going to turn the entire China into a big prison, and everyone is a prisoner. And this include the top CCP political leaders. They are also, Xi Jinping has their data too. So if they use social media, if they use cell phone, I mean, they are part of this big surveillance system. So that's why Xi Jinping does not want to give up his power, because whoever controls this CCP state apparatus, then you have the power to control your political opponent. So whoever controls that, so what makes him more powerful, what helps him stay in power, is not because he's liked, or is not because he's more talented, or not because his vision. It's only because he gets to control this surveillance system, the CCP state apparatus. So they're all fighting to control that. So whoever controls it will be more powerful. So hopefully I answered the question. All right, so now let's talk about what happens with this tycoon who was just trialed. So this tycoon was involved in the financial coup against Xi Jinping by the Jiang faction in 2015. There's a notorious stock market crash in China. The market was so volatile, and so after that, Xi Jinping has been taking down these financial tycoons one after another. And Xiao Jianhua I made a video about his whole the financial coup, and also his history in June. I think it was a June 18th video. It's called A Tycoon Amid the Factional War. I'll provide the link in the description later after this live, so you can watch it. So at the end of that video, I predicted that if Xiao would be given a light sentence, if Xi Jinping is lenient on him, that means he has cooperated with Xi Jinping and provided Xi with all the evidence, basically provide a map of where the powerful CCP families where their monies are, right? So Xi Jinping is trying to find out where all these people kept their money, where they're hiding their money, and this guy, he knows all about it. So he must have collaborated with Xi Jinping, and as a reward, Xi Jinping will give him a lenient sentence. So it so happened, right after the Beidaihe meeting, this guy, a Shanghai Intermediate Court, sentenced the billionaire to 13 years in prison and a $1 million fine. And his company, Tomorrow Holdings, was fined $8.5 billion for four crimes like illegal absorption of public funds, breach of trust, illegal use of funds, and bribery. I mean, they did not mention the financial coup or anything. So it's a very lenient sentence on him. And also the guy has been in detention since 2017. So he's already been locked up for 5.5 years. So if you subtract that, all he had to do is stay in prison for another 7.5 years. And they may even give him advanced parole. So he served the rest of his term at home. So it's a very lenient sentencing compared with the other two guys. The other two guy was Hu Xiaohui, right? Lai Xiaoming, the head of the Huarong group, who was executed 8 days after he was sentenced a year ago. I think it was a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago. And then Wu Xiaohui, who was sentenced to 18 years in prison. And Wu Xiaohui is the ex-grandson-in-law of Deng Xiaoping. So even when you have ex-princeling, Xi Jinping gave him 18 years of prison term. So for this guy, 13 years is very lenient. And so that means Xi Jinping got what he wanted, and then he used that to bargain with the Jiang faction at Beidaihe. So it's like, okay, you let me continue with my third term, or you let me continue to rule China, and I will be easy on you. I won't investigate into your families and try to expose where your money is. So the two sides have compromised, and as a result, Xiao Jianhua was immediately trialed and sentenced. I mean, not trialed; it was immediately sentenced after Beidaihe, when that agreement has reached between the two factions that have been engaged with an ugly fight. All right. Okay, so, all right. I have finished my part of the presentation. Let me see if people have any questions for me. Thank you, William. Thank you for the donation. Let me see. Anyone else having any questions? Could the reformist Wang Yang still be a possible replacement for Xi? Wang Yang, no. Actually, thank you. Let me talk. Wang Yang actually was also one of the persons who were active after the Beidaihe meeting. By active, I mean media give him enough exposure. So Li Keqiang, Wang Yang, and Hu Chunhua were all active. So people think he will continue to. So there are two questions: who's going to be Xi Jinping's successor? Right? That question we have not seen any answers yet, or Xi Jinping does not want to talk about it. So then the second question is who's going to be in the next Politburo Standing Committee, because the top 7 guys that run China is important. If most of them are Xi Jinping's allies, that means he can get away with his agenda. So people's assessment is the Wang Yang and Li Keqiang will continue to be in the Politburo Standing Committee, and they'll just run other parts of the CCP's organs or organizations. But then they will not be Xi Jinping's. They're too old to be Xi Jinping's successors. To find somebody to succeed Xi, there has to be somebody much younger. Now, Hu Chunhua still has his chance after 5 years of being the premier. His age still allows him to be Xi Jinping's successor, but she obviously doesn't want him to be. She wants one of his guys to be his successor. So the fight will be ongoing. And people say when it comes to Wang Yang, people comment. I saw other Chinese commentators say that both Li Keqiang and Wang Yang seem to be alive all of a sudden again after Beidaihe, because before that, if you look at their meetings, their public appearances, they look so dull and dead and, un, uninspired. But after the Beidaihe meetings, there must be some consensus reached or some power balance reached, and then the two guys all of a sudden look alive again. So from there, people concluded that they will continue to play a role in the top leadership. Okay, let me see. CCP chairmen don't choose their own successors. That's a long question. They would want to, but in the old days, during the Deng Xiaoping time and the Mao Zedong time, because those two have absolute power over the other ones, they get to choose their leaders. Now, the leaders nowadays are getting weaker and weaker, or they have more and more political enemies. So it has become more and more difficult for them to choose their successors. I made a series about CCP leaders and their successors. And I'll post the link in the description after this live, and you can watch that. Any other questions? All right, let me see. Thank you, Jeff, Jeff Boyd, for the donation. Mortgage boycotters make CCP look weak, William. Yes, this is actually the biggest threat to them, I think, in my mind, because, okay, like I said, it's people don't have to gather, they don't have to protest. All they have to do is stop mortgage payment, and then the bank will collapse. So it is scary, but it scares people like Li Keqiang, who's the premier. But I don't think it scares Xi Jinping to some extent, but I think he's I said this before, he's not afraid for Chinese economy to collapse, because communism believe in poverty. They don't mind poverty. The worst is to go back to common prosperity or common poverty, right? So we go back to the old days when everything is rationed. So, and what fears some people is when the economy has really deteriorated, and when there's social unrest, maybe war would be a solution for Xi. So who knows? We'll see. Oh, and Ico, thank you so much for your insights, Lei, and hi from Switzerland. Thank you for the donation. Let's see, William, I already addressed that. Okay, all right, excellent. Um, and then the question about carrot and stick, I already answered that. Okay, all right, let's see. Any other questions for me? I've been talking for an hour. Wow, it went by quickly. Lei, do you have any thoughts on Taiwan? Um, it's so complex. That's why we need to that's why I think we need to really watch the political dynamics within the CCP, because it's the decision for Xi Jinping will be a political decision, right? I think the decision, so it's really tied to the political struggle or how stable his base is. But I thought one opinion that I think is very interesting, and I think it's worth sharing here. And the commentator said that this is one view, and he said that Xi Jinping knows that militarily, the PLA, the Chinese People's Liberation Army, is going to lose if it attacks Taiwan right now. Militarily, it's not going to win the war, and so that's why it has resorted to other means like information war, infiltration, right? They're trying to use other means to infiltrate the Taiwanese society and then break it down from within. And the CCP has always resorted to that kind of a tactic in its past history. And there's another school of thought is it will attack Taiwan when the U.S. has some kind of internal problems or has some kind of internal unrest, because it will wait until its opponent is the weakest, and then it will take advantage of that opportunity. And so that reminds me of the recent political development in this country, in the United States, um, where the FBI raided, the home of a former president, and that caused a huge political debate, or some people say the country is divided. And uh, when I look at that, I said, how could that's such a coincidence? If you look at it from the CCP's perspective, it just uh, it's a perfect it's a good situation. So the more the more America is divided or get caught up in its own internal issues, and the more we're really helping the CCP to have a chance to attack Taiwan. So I think Americans should really stay alert and don't let these internal politics to divide us, to carry us away, because it's dangerous. So so I just want to share that, because when I read that, because that person didn't really mention the FBI raid of Mar-a-Lago, but he was just saying the CCP, as a rule, will always wait until your opponent is the weakest, or will try to create an internal unrest or an internal um, instability. Excuse me. And then to get your hands all tied up, and then it will take advantage of that. So that concept idea should not be ignored by the West. So I hope people are watching my videos. All right, let me see. Kelly, I had company and missed the first 50 minutes. If it hasn't already been touched on, I'm wondering what you think of the recent Philippines election. I have said that it will be very good for China. Yeah, Marcos Jr. was set to be. Oh, thank you, thank you. I have a hard time pronounce your guy's name, um, but everyone has such a creative name. But what will happen? Let me answer that question. Marcos Jr. was, or had been, very close to China. Uh, he had visited China many years. He was, but that was before Xi Jinping's time. Now, I think it's there's a difference when you're the head of the state and you are responsible to your country. You have to do what your voters tell, or you have to listen to your constituents. And so he may change, but he was close to the he was close to China during the Jiang Zemin's time, shall we say? So, what will happen to the Jiang faction after Jiang dies? Will they join? John is 96 or 98 years old. He's not running it. It's run by his son and the Zhen Qinghong. So it's kind of irrelevant if he dies or not, because he's already too old to take care of any business. It's the other people who's running it. Okay, I feel like the China-US relationship is just too complex to have a war between them. They're so intertwined that both parties would lose. What do you think about this? To some extent, I'd agree. I agree with your assessment that it is too complex to have a war between them. But does that necessarily mean in a war you can't? Both sides will lose. Yes, but you still will have one side win. In any war, in any combat, even though both sides may lose, but there still will be a winning side. And in this case, it's just relative, right? So who will lose more? The one that loses less is the winner. So in this case, America cannot afford to lose to China. So, and I think everyone at this point, all politicians or all freedom loving people would have to take a stand. We have no choice. We're forced. Even Chinese people, even these mortgage boycotters, sooner or later, everyone has to take a stand. Um, you know, do you still support the communist ideology, this rule, or do you not? There's no leeway anymore. People are being in the past 10 years or even 20 years, people don't think about this question because they think, oh, you know what, as long as I have money, I don't have to worry about politics. As long as I can make money and carry on with my life, I don't talk about politics. That's the attitude of a lot of Chinese people. But they're now at a point, your money is being taken away from you, your freedom, your health is being taken away from you. So they're being pushed to a point that they have to take a stand. The only justification for CCP to hold on to its rule is economic. The only reason it has to justify its legitimacy to the Chinese is economic. It tells the Chinese people, look, you may not have freedom, you may not have information, freedom, free access to the internet, you may not have press freedom, but look, I make you wealthy. Relatively speaking, you don't want to go back to the 50s, right? I allow you to have money. You can make money now. So, and people have bought into that kind of justification. And now, when that's taken away from the Chinese people, I think people will not, people will be forced to take a stand. From Jackson Marston, Taiwan is the origin of the Polynesian cultural and language families. How aware of this is the CCP? And if there is a reunification, would this have any effect on the One China policy? When I say reunification, I have fans who get upset. They say, well, what do you mean by reunification? It's like they were always separate. It's excuse me. So that word, excuse me, let me take a sip of water. So I say unification, not reunification. One China policy has also many interpretations. The U.S. One China policy is different from the Chinese One China policy. Because a policy can vary, right? And then Chinese version is not One China policy. Chinese version is One China principle, 一中原则. So they're mixing apples and oranges. So it's a semantic fight. The US and China have never agreed on the One China policy because they used in different terms. The Chinese is One China principle. So when it's a principle, you cannot change. When it's a policy, the policy is subject to definition, right? It's subject to interpretation. So a policy can change. So the politicians say we agree to the One China policy. They've never agreed. They've never even agreed on the semantics. So how could they agree on the policy? So that's just and the West is changing their definition of One China policy now. They're saying so many different things now. So when you say the effect on the China policy, it's hard to say. CCP is not aware of. CCP is the least sensitive of any cultural significance. CCP is the one who destroyed traditional Chinese culture because it sees all traditional culture as a threat to its rule. Because people who have a strong tie to their traditional culture will not identify themselves with communist ideology. And therefore, CCP will do everything it can. Or the most progressive ideology in the West also are big on eliminating tradition, eliminating traditional values, because they know traditional values will work against communist ideology or the far leftist ideology. So they will not appreciate culture. Anytime they talk about culture, it's only when they have a need. China rebuilt these temples that it destroyed or demolished during the Cultural Revolution, not because they believe that the value of the temples or what Buddhism's teaching. It's not. It's for tourists, for tourism. It's to make money, and they have also turned all the temples into a revenue generating institution, and really has corrupted religious institutions by doing that. All right. Okay, so hopefully I've answered the question. Is she from for real? Is she a leader for the CCP? Good or bad for China's global trade and Belt and Road Initiative? Um, is Belt and Road Initiative good for China? No. Is it good for the world? No. So when a leader who's pushing an initiative that's not good for China and that's not good for the world, can you say he's a good leader for China? Right? The Belt and Road Initiative has caused other countries to be so much in debt. It will also cause the Chinese state-owned banks big problems, because when you can't get your loans back, when you can't get loan payment backs for all these countries, so this program will screw up Chinese banks and will also screw up all the other nations that sign up to the Belt and Road initiatives. So can you say the leader who came up with this idea is a good leader for China? He's not a good leader for China. He's not a leader for the world. All right. What is in the boxes behind me? Oh, the boxes behind me, they're just my file. They're just storage boxes, random things. They're probably not important things that I don't need to access. I put them up on top. So, okay. So, Japan can permit unification. Yes. Okay. So, Belt and Road spending has destroyed China's foreign exchange position. Yeah. Yes. All right. So this program has been going on for an hour and 14 minutes. And I thank everyone for joining me. I had a good time talking to you guys, and let me know your thoughts. Leave me comments. I hope to do this more often. So I hope everyone enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Yeah, that's it. Okay, Dave M. Thank you. See you next time. Yes. Okay, so have a great Sunday. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. I know it's your precious time Sunday morning. All right, bye. Thank you.